So a friend of mine bought a 18-foot bucket boat. It's an older Avon, and you can either bail, or if you're rowing by yourself, you're going to need a bilge pump. So I thought I would build a bilge pump for him. The heart of the system is this battery case with a bunch of other stuff. You can see underneath here there's a 30 amp hour lithium iron phosphorus oxygen battery with a bunch of other stuff in here. So inside here there's an AC charger that you can use to charge the battery before a trip and after a trip, so the battery's full both at the start of the trip and when you put it in storage. I have spare fuses and spare key fob batteries. Everything is fused. The case that this was in is a case I got from a company called Elephant Cases. It's made for trolling motors on small boats. I'm not sure they make these cases anymore. They might be discontinued. That's a question. Also in here is a way to charge USB devices. There's a 12 volt to 5 volt converter that has USB outputs. On one of those USB outputs I put a charging squid, and that is switched with a switch. I forgot to mention that the AC charger also needs a switch because it draws current when it's connected to the battery to run the LED. So that's on a switch as well. It's going to stay off on the river, of course, all the time. Also in here is a solar charge controller that needs a connection. This is the solar charge controller. It all fit very nicely inside a little Pelican case-like box, again from Elephant Cases. Let's look at the solar charger. Everything, getting close on those. Everything in here gets connected through waterproof connections, through waterproof cables, and these cables, get this right, cables go on like that, and should be a waterproof connection. There's an input from the solar panels and an output to the bilge pump. We'll talk about those switches in a minute. All of the connections here are through waterproof connections with 9-foot connecting cables. So everything can be easily rigged and then come apart or back together. Everything should be a waterproof connection. There's a couple of places that are not made to be waterproof that I use silicone, and those will last either a short time or a long time, but there's a good effort. We come over to the solar panels, again trying for waterproof connections. Coming out of the solar panels, the connections needed to be a little less waterproof. This is the solar panel assembly. I put it in a clamshell that can be unfolded. Each of these panels is a 10 watt solar panel for a total of 20. This can be rigged on top of the load with a strap across this. Everything should be waterproof. And then when you get to camp, you can fold up the clamshell and stick it off to the side, and the solar panels are all well protected, so you don't have to be delicate with it. If we look at functionality, let's do the bilge pump first. So the bilge pump is rigged on a piece of wood with a couple of points for straps. The idea is that this would strap against a frame, and the bilge pump would be probably at the bottom of the gear pile in the rear of the boat, or anywhere really, but it's meant to be rigged to a frame through these connecting points. It's a standard Rule bilge pump. It's one of the more expensive pumps. You can buy pumps that are a lot cheaper, but I went on the expensive side just for reliability. Going back over to the case. So I've got a wireless key fob wired in the box. I put a switch in for the wireless function because the wireless connectivity inside the box takes current. It doesn't take much, but if it's a cloudy trip or you're really worried about power, then you can turn it on and off. And you can see the key fob working. The lock turns it on. And the unlock turns it off. That's pretty nifty. I was happy with how that came out. You can see how fast it drains a 3-gallon bucket of water. Put that water back in there. And the response time is pretty fast, as you can see. Pretty quiet. You can run the bilge pump dry, but not for very long, and turn it off. And if something goes wrong with the wireless function, you can always override it with the bilge pump override. I put a little nozzle that can be attached to the end of this. That gives a little more of a stream of water. The idea is you could use it to wash your boat, maybe. Of course, you're using bilge water to wash your boat, but if your boat's really muddy, maybe that's the way to go. It is never to be used to squirt other boats with the water. Let me emphasize that. Never to be used in that way. Probably want to rig this near the rower so they can reach the override if there's any problem. Come out of a rapid and the wireless doesn't work. The idea is that this would attach to a person's PFD, so it was always available. Quite a range on these. You can be up in camp and run your bilge pump if you want to, but there's always a bilge override if something goes wrong with the wireless.